At number 9, the 2006-07 Golden State Warriors. Nobody saw this team becoming one of the most interesting and fascinating stories of that year. You could argue that the crowd at Oracle Arena was just as loud when this team was playing in the playoffs as other Warriors teams that won championships. In the playoffs, they came up with the mantra, "We believe." No matter how many years go by, you will always remember that slogan that represented the 2006-07 Golden State Warriors. Nowadays, when you mention the Warriors, you automatically think of a successful, well-run franchise. A team with one of the most popular players in the league, Steph Curry. A team that went to the finals 5 years in a row and won 3 of them. A team that revolutionized the game of basketball. Great ball movement, great shooting, and great defense. Everyone playing for one another. But you have to understand, before Steph Curry got drafted, and before the 2006-07 team, this was one of the worst franchises in the league, on the same level as the New York Knicks and the LA Clippers. They used to be the league's laughingstock for years and years. This is an organization that has had a history of disappointments, mismanagement, drama, and bad luck. After winning a championship in 2015, 1975 was the last time that happened. During that 40-year span, they made the playoffs only 13 times and had 16 seasons with a winning record. Not a very good percentage. Let's take you back to the late 80s, where the coach of the 2007 Warriors, Don Nelson, was also the coach back then. This was one of the few great moments in that 40-year span. The Run TMC days. Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, and Chris Mullin. These guys were cultural icons. Don Nelson only had one style, run and gun. This style of play took the league by surprise. The NBA back then was a big man league. Most teams played inside out, but Don Nelson switched it up. They were going to play small. They were going to zig when everybody zagged. They were the only team in the league playing that style, and they became one of the most exciting teams in the league. There was actually a playoff game where Run DMC actually introduced the starting lineup. But instead of building off that early success, the Warriors shot themselves in the foot and traded away future Hall of Famer Mitch Richmond for Billy Owens, a player that was never more than a role player. Only a bad franchise can mess up that bad. In 1993, the Warriors acquired Chris Webber in a draft day trade, and it seemed like it was the start of something special. Sewell won Rookie of the Year, but only played for the Warriors for 1 year because he had an issue with Don Nelson's style of play. Webber would go on to be a multiple-time All-Star for the Sacramento Kings. They also gave up 3 future draft picks to be able to acquire him on draft night. In 1996, the Warriors drafted Todd Fuller. The other players that were still on the board at the time was Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash, Peja Stojakovic, and Jermaine O'Neal. In 1997, head coach P.J. Carlesimo and Latrell Sprewell were involved in an unfortunate incident. Sprewell choked the head coach during a heated practice. This was definitely a black eye for the franchise, a black eye for the NBA. Sprewell was suspended for the whole season. He would go on to help the Knicks make it to the finals in 1999. In 1998, instead of drafting and keeping Vince Carter, they decided to trade him for Antoine Jamison. Now, Jamison was a good player, but Vince Carter was a superstar. A superstar that a bad franchise like the Warriors needed. In 2001, they got the biggest steal in the draft, Gilbert Arenas. He would go on to win Most Improved Player and was a rising superstar. The Warriors were not able to keep him when he became a free agent in 2003 because they were over the salary cap and he was a second-round pick. That rule was later changed to allow teams to keep a player they drafted regardless of their cap situation. This was a case of bad luck for the Warriors. The 2006-07 Warriors were a team full of misfits, rejects, outcasts, bad boys. A team full of players that their former teams looked at as damaged goods. And this was the year that Don Nelson made his way back to the franchise for the second time. Playing small and playing fast is the only way Don Nelson knows how to coach. I feel he and Mike D'Antoni are mostly responsible for how the game is played today. Free-flowing, great ball movement, and great shooting. We always talk about players that was held back by injuries, but we never mentioned Baron Davis, who had a lot of injuries in his career, in college and in the NBA. Seeing how good he still was despite that shows you how much better he could have been. In 2005, Golden State made a trade for the former UCLA point guard Baron Davis. This was one of the most lopsided trades I can remember at the time. The Warriors only had to give up Speedy Claxton and Dale Davis. It was a ridiculous return for an all-star point guard. Baron Davis was the main reason the 2007 Warriors were able to have an unforgettable season. Davis was still only 25 years old in 2005, and he had just made third-team All-NBA in 2004. Monte Ellis, Andres Beatrice, and Jason Richardson are the 3 players on this team that was actually drafted by the Warriors. Monte Ellis was a second-round steal in 2005, as he was drafted with the 40th overall pick, the Mississippi Bullet. Speed kills, and that's what Monte Ellis used to succeed in the NBA. If you blink your eyes, you might miss him. And his spin move was so deadly, and he always finished it off with an acrobatic layup. He was definitely a Don Nelson type of player. His spark off the bench was what the team needed. Jason Richardson was drafted 5th overall by the Warriors in 2001. He is mostly known for his high-flying dunks early in his career. The only thing that the Warriors used to win was a slam dunk contest by Richardson. He started to develop his jump shot and became a reliable 3-point shooter for the majority of his career. Andres Beatrice was drafted 11th overall in 2004. He was a solid big man who can get up and down the floor real quick and served as a rim protector. Even though this team had some good talent on it, they were still projected to miss the playoffs once again. Before the first day of training camp, the Warriors signed Matt Barnes, a tough, hard-nosed type of player, a no-nonsense type of player. Mike Dunleavy Jr. was not one of Don Nelson's favorite players. He inserted Barnes in the starting lineup immediately. In a game in December, Matt Barnes hit 7 3-pointers to tie the Warriors franchise record at the time. That record was broken by teammate Jason Richardson later on that season, as he made 8 3-pointers in a game in March. Now that record obviously didn't last long when a guy by the name of Steph Curry came into the league. Matt Barnes' best years in the NBA was with this Warriors team. During his 2 years with the team, he averaged around 11 points per game. This Warriors team didn't get off to a great start. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows throughout the season. They went through some tough times. At the beginning of January, the Warriors had a mediocre record of 17-16, but they made a move that would change their whole season. On January 17th, the Warriors made a roster overhaul by trading Troy Murphy, Mike Dunleavy Jr., and Ike Diagu to the Indiana Pacers for Steven Jackson, Al Harrington, and Josh Powell. Jackson and Harrington proved to be very important pieces to this Warriors team. These two were perfect for Don Nelson's system. They were more athletic and more versatile. The Warriors could fully unleash their true firepower on offense. After the Malice in the Palace incident, Steven Jackson's time in Indiana was numbered. The Pacers were ready to move on, and the Warriors were ready to take him along with his baggage. Don Nelson named Jackson one of the team captains, along with Baron Davis. Al Harrington allowed Don Nelson to really go small by putting him at the center position a lot of the time. His 3-point shooting really opened up the lane. Davis and Ellis had plenty of room to work with because of the spacing that was created. This Cinderella season really didn't get started till after the Warriors lost to the Wizards on March 4th, which dropped their record to 27-35. They were on the verge of missing the playoffs for the 14th year in a row. But from that point on, the Warriors went on a huge run to end the season. The Warriors needed all the wins they could get.
Barron, 5 seconds to go. Warriors won't call time. Monte for the win. Yeah! Warriors have won at the buzzer by Monte Ellis. How badly did the Warriors need that win? They needed that victory in the world. They get it to Barron. At 5, Barron at 4, Barron for the jumper, good!
He's clutch. We've seen him do it so many times.
2.3 left. Seattle's got one final whack at it.
He just juked him and then pulled up.
They won 16 of their last 21 games of the season as they finished with a 42-40 record. They had to win the last game of the season against Portland to clinch the 8th seed in the Western Conference. This team was on the road. They won their last 5 games by an average of 21 points. The last time the Warriors was in the playoffs was 13 years ago. They had one big award that was given to one of their players. Second-year player Monte Ellis. He won the Most Improved Player award. It was one of the closest voting for that award ever. Ellis came out on top by just 3 points. He averaged 16 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds per game that season. His 6.8-point scoring increase from his rookie year was the largest increase that year. The Warriors had a date with the number 1 seeded Dallas Mavericks, a team that won 67 games and looked completely dominant throughout the season. They had 3 double-digit winning streaks, and they had a stretch where they won 61 of 68 games. Dirk Nowitzki was on his way to be crowned league MVP. Even though the Warriors won just 42 games and just barely made the playoffs, they still had a reason to believe. There was only one team that the Mavericks didn't beat in the regular season. It was this Warriors team. The Warriors swept them in the regular season 3-0. Don Nelson had coached the Mavericks for 8 years and the first 7 years of Nowinski's career. Let's just say that Nelson had the inside track on how to defend Nowinski and defeat the Mavericks. And his relationship with the Mavericks did not end on a good note. Even more motivation for Nelson. Putting a more athletic and smaller defender on Dirk Nowitzki was key to the series. Players like Steven Jackson, Mikael Pietrus, and Matt Barnes gave Nowinski some problems, and he really wasn't used to being defended by those type of players. The Warriors ended the regular season third in the NBA and made 3-pointers per game, with just around 8 per game. Against the Mavericks in the first round, that went up to an average of 10 per game. The Warriors came out on top in Game 1 behind 33 points by Baron Davis. The Mavericks came back to even the series in Game 2. And now the series was off the Oracle Arena, where the magic happened. The Mavericks never stood a chance in Game 3. Oracle Arena was loud from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. The Warriors rode their energy from the crowd to an 18-point win to take the series lead. In Game 4, the Mavericks kept the game closer, but the Warriors pulled out a close one, beating the Mavericks by 4 points and taking a commanding 3-1 lead. The league MVP stepped up in Game 5 as he led the way with 30 points on their way to a 6-point win. And now back to Oracle Arena for Game 6. The Warriors fans may have played just as big of a role in the series as the players themselves. Steven Jackson was the player of the game. He had 33 points and made 7 3-pointers in that game. The Warriors blew out the Mavericks by 25 points. It was the greatest atmosphere you could ever experience in a basketball game, and it wasn't even an NBA Finals game. This was the third time in history where an 8-seeded team defeated a number 1 seeded team. But the first one since the NBA changed the first round to a best-of-7 series instead of best-of-5. The Warriors would go on to lose to the Utah Jazz in the second round in 5 games. But Baron Davis left the fans with something to be excited about.
And then getting the basketball, because a lot of good things will happen, not just with him scoring, but then also it open up. Hello. Timeout in Barron's house.
This season was special for the Warriors fans. Having not experienced a playoff game in 13 years probably had a lot to do with it. This fan base was hungry for the opportunity to root for their team. Everybody loves an underdog story. The Warriors will end up winning 48 games the next season, but surprisingly they still missed the playoffs. But the 2007 Warriors were a team that helped change the way the game was played from that point on. It was a dream season for an organization that was starving for recognition.